Welcome to part 2 of planning your next career move. In part 2, we're going to talk about discovering your career fit. It's discovering your career fit because you're going to try it out. You're going to take some action and then reflect on whether it's something you want to pursue. Let's get started. You know you have options. We've talked about this as well. And now you know how to think about it in terms of what tasks might interest you, what values you have, and what skills you might need. Let's talk about a tool where you can actually try out some of these jobs from the comfort of your own couch or while you're doing an incubation in the lab. When I talk to graduate students, postdocs, they often tell me that it's hard to try out a career because it typically requires knowing what's involved, talking to people, doing an internship or some sort of a job experience. And so they often say it would be so much easier if I could do something in a shorter amount of time, less than a day. If I didn't have to leave the lab, if I could try something that was true to task, something that people actually did, and it would help me narrow things down. So we created this resource that is both flexible. If you look up the y-axis, higher it is, more flexible it is, and also low time commitment, right? More time commitment across the x-axis. So we created something that was both flexible and didn't require amount of time compared to, say, doing a consulting project or doing a course on something. I'm doing some networking, job shadows, internships, as you see here on this very easy 2x2 graph. And I created this because oftentimes, as someone is going through an assessment like the MyIDP or a ChemIDP or Imagine PhD, you'll get these percentages back on your fit for skills or interests, but you don't still understand how that might fit for you. I was one of those people when I did the IDP. And so my friends and I decided to write a grant and get funded for trying out these experiences to help you understand what a 67% fit and interest might mean. When you're starting to do any career exploration, it helps to go from a point of curiosity. So I highlight this video here by Elizabeth Gilbert. Check it out. There's the YouTube link. And she talks about how if we approach our career journey or any sort of decision making with curiosity instead of fear, we'll put ourselves in a different mindset. And so for you, it could mean looking at these questions instead. What problems do I like to solve? What's important to me? Where do I find flow? And what that means is whenever you're working on something during the week and you can spend hours on it and not even realize it, that's kind of your happy place at work. That's what flow is. How can you do more of that in your next career path? Also, what kinds of orgs do I want to work with? And what kinds of people, what kinds of professionals do I want to work with? These are questions to kind of get you started. So go ahead and pause now and note these for yourself because it's kind of good to know where you want to start before you get started. It gives you a stronger sense of what you want to do. So looking at this in terms of curiosity, again, this is kind of borrowing from this Japanese concept of ikigai. It's knowing what you love to do, along with what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can get paid for. And so knowing what your strengths are at this time can help you to build skills to get to what the world needs. So just because you don't have it right now doesn't mean that you can't work towards it. And this Job Sims is one way to figure that out. So a job sim comprises a 4-step process. You'll do a job simulation, and I'll introduce those in just a little bit. Then you'll think about putting these in the SMART goals checklist. We talked in the last video, so check that out about what makes a goal specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound, as well as the need to evaluate and reflect on those goals. Then you get a chance to think about how to talk about that with somebody, because oftentimes when you're reading through a job sim or any sort of career exploration, you'll read one article or one example and you need to see if that's true in different contexts or different organizations or what the experience is actually like for a person. So we'll give you information about how to do an informational interview, and then you'll do the self-reflection guide. So remember that yin and yang, you do the experiment, you have to think about it and decide what the next steps are. I'm a scientist by training, so all the job sims are written up like a protocol. There's a background. We'll tell you about the process, what the actual task is that you'll be doing, what you'll create from that, and resources to help get you started and learn more about it. We'll also have a skills list for you, so you know what skills that you need, that you can compare what you already have and what you need to develop if that's the area you want to go into. Before we get started, I want you to go ahead and note what your curiosities for the type of information you like to work with, the organizations you like to work with, and the professionals you like to work with. So the reason this is important is we have over 60 job simulations for you to work in now, and I've edited all of them through the last 7 years. And one of the things that I've learned is that all the sims are the same for PhD level, right? It's something that you're going to be doing either in an internship or your first year on the job. And what I've learned is that for every job sim for a PhD, you're synthesizing some sort of information, and then you're going to write it up in some sort of way, and you're going to be working with a certain type of person, and that's what changes. And so right now, whether you like to think about data visualization, or you whether prefer coding or business or financial insights or information about pop science right now. So take a moment to write down what kinds of information you like to consume and create. And then next, think about the types of organizations you want to work with. So that could be, I want to continue working on a campus, or I want to work for a news organization, or I want to work for a consulting firm, or I want to work for a pharmaceutical company. I want to work for a nonprofit. So start there. And then what types of professionals? Do you want to work with business people? Do you want to work with teachers? Do you want to work with students? What level of student? So take a note for that too. Okay, so now that you've taken a few minutes to think about what you want, what you're curious about, and where you might find your ikigai, let's look at what the job sims are. Here's the job sim website. It's intersectjobsims.com. It's set up as the process we mentioned. There's the SMART goals, the reflection guide, and the informational interview guide. And then we have simulations in the sciences and also in the humanities. If you want to develop a job sim and collaborate with us, there's this tab here, and then there's tips that we've written blogs about along the way. When you get to the Job Sims site, it reminds you that it helps you figure out what your interests and skills are and how to translate those to potential careers. It gives you information about the options you're doing, or options that you have. So you can look here on the different Job Sims pages if you want to just browse through there. It reminds you that there's a process involved, and then you can go ahead and go to the Job Sim library itself. So when you go to the library, there's these different career categories that are mapped to the My IDP categories as well. And you can scroll through and read through a few of them. Then what you can do is you can think about trying one of the job simulations. So for example, triaging a paper. Let's look at this. All the job sims are going to be structured in the same way. It'll tell you what the job area is and what the task is. And within triaging papers, you're going to be doing this task for this job simulation. You're going to assess the value and the fit of a paper for a journal. Each job sim has a background. It'll tell you what type of organization you're doing and what type of organization this job sim fits into, and a little bit about the professionals you might be working with. Then it gives you an overall process. Think of it as the whole protocol for an experiment. It tells you all the steps that you might take. But in this job sim, you're going to just simulate one task in this whole protocol or in this process. And so we'll tell you what the exercise is. You're going to critique an article from an editor's perspective. You'll read the entire volume of a journal and then select the best or worst papers for critique. And so we'll outline the task you'll need to take. And most job sims have about 2 tasks to 4 tasks. And then it'll tell you what the deliverable is. It's important to pay attention here to the type of write-up that you're going to be doing, if it's a presentation, a visual, or an actual write-up. Again, paying attention to how you like to do work. There's resources here because it's hard to Google what you need to get started, so we provide them for you here. And here's that skills list. These are skills you would need to perform in a task and then in the field overall. And if there's additional tasks that you might need to perform, consider these as well. And we might have similar job sims that you want to check out if this is the job area you selected to pursue. We give authorship to the person who created the job simulation with us, and often it's PhDs who did internships or employers who hosted interns. And so you can check out different job sims. Check out one or two to get started. If you're exploring, if you're ready to apply for jobs, think about using these to prep for those interviews. And remember, there's different phases to really get the full experience. You can set your SMART goals. We've created a checklist for you and reminded you what SMART goals stand for. And here's an example of how to set a SMART goal. We have, like I said, an example checklist if you want to work through with sample calendar dates that you could put in for yourself that's worked for other people. There's a self-reflection guide. For this one, it helps guide you with questions to consider in terms of whether you like to do an experience, how often, and if you're completed more than one job sim, you can do a quick reflection on one or the other and then just kind of see how they compare. There's printable versions and online versions that you can click on. And then finally, an informational interview guide. How would you want to talk to somebody about the job sim you did? Not that you're going to bring the job sim to them and say, how did I do? But more like, oh, this is the kind of task that I did. How often are you doing this in your organization? Or what does that look like here? Do you have databases to help you find information? Or how are you connecting with people to get, the information that you need, or who's assessing it, right? Those kinds of questions to connect and learn more about a career area. So have fun exploring this. You're going to do one or two examples just to get started. And this can help you, one, get used to what this format is, and then narrow down which area you might want to do a full job sim. And once you get to the stage where you've narrowed down, as we talked about, one or two areas, do a full job simulation. Complete the task, create the deliverable, and then see what that experience feels like. And whenever I say deliverable, that is either the write-up of the information. You're going to either make a slide deck or a visual or a flyer, or you're going to do like a blog post or something analytical, like write up drafts for a patent or something like that. And so feel what that experience is like, and whether, one, it's easy for you or if it's not. I once had a postdoc say that she got to meet with somebody who does science writing, and they prompted her, why don't you write up a scientific abstract, but for a lay audience, like if it was a news article. And it took her a long time to do it, weeks even. And she realized that writing wasn't her way of communicating. She preferred to do presentations. So that's a valuable information that you can reflect on as you're doing this. I also know other postdocs who, when they got into a job simulation that's supposed to take around 6 to 8 hours, they spent over 15 hours on it, they told me later, because they analyzed a business in one way, analyzed a second business and compared it, and they realized that they are interested in that type of work and looking at those kinds of questions. So again, those are things to note for yourself. It's okay if you don't end up spending a lot of time on something because you're not interested in it. Note that. Maybe that's something you don't want to pursue. And then note the things that you really do find interest in. All right, one important thing to keep in mind after seeing all these job simulations is that if you go through the process, it can really help you kickstart your career exploration, because you're trying something rather than just thinking about it. We've done evaluations, and students and postdocs have told us that it helps them narrow down their careers and really reflect on their interests and skills. So take the time to go through each part of the process, from the job sim to the reflection and talking to somebody about it. Another thing to keep in mind is that job sims, because of the way they were created, they represent one type of task at one type of organization. So just like a scientist, you're not going to make any decisions on an N of one. And so go ahead and think about what else might be involved in that process, or if this is done at a startup, maybe this looks different in a pharmaceutical company, and then make sure that you talk to somebody in that context so that you understand what it's like for them. You can ask them, how often are you doing this type of a task? Or what does this look like at your organization? Or maybe for consulting, this was created from somebody at a small boutique firm, and it looks really different in a large consulting firm. So consider the context. As you do your job sim too, you want to think about that list that you made early on about the types of information organizations and professionals you want to work with. This comprises your working identity. Then make a list of what this is, what these three things are for the jobs that you've done. and then compare them. How does it compare in terms of, does this make sense for something you want to do, or it didn't quite fit? The information was the same, but the organization wasn't quite what I wanted, or the professionals. Is this something that I can do with a different group of people? So again, it's a chance to just kind of look at it and gather some more information. Also, take the time to do a skills inventory. At the bottom of every job simulation, there were professionals that told us the skills that you need to have to do well in this role and in this field in general. So take a note of the ones that you already have and the ones that you want to develop, and decide for yourself whether it's a skill you want to develop now, you have the resources and time to develop now, or whether you want to wait on it. And you can use the IDP kind of planning tool to figure out the timelines on when you want to spend the energy or develop that skill. Again, the simulation isn't just the task that you read, it's the entire experience. People who've done this all over the country have told us that it makes the most sense when they're able to then talk to somebody about it. So perform an informational, just gather information. It's like if you were to work with a new antibody and you would want to talk to a collaborator to learn about how they use that antibody. It's the same thing. It's not about getting the job for an informational. It's about just learning about what the job looks like and how that person is in it. And then finally, you utilize the SMART goals checklist. And this can be as simple as putting it on your calendar that you're going to try this job sim, you're going to find somebody on LinkedIn, and then you're going to connect with them. These job sims can be used no matter what career stage you're in. Obviously, they're really great if you're wanting to explore careers and just figuring out what you like and where you can find flow. If you're at a stage where you've narrowed it down to one or two and you're trying to gain experience, you can use these to prepare for interviews. And some of these are actually created from interview assessments. Whenever a postdoc or grad student was in an interview, did an assessment, they kind of rewrote it for this job sim library. So it's there for you to practice. And then finally, if you're on the job search, use it as a way to gain vocabulary and understand terminology that might be used in the career area you want to get into. A question that I often get is, do I need to do a traditional postdoc? And one of the things you want to ask yourself is, where do you want to go next? And will the traditional postdoc get you there? There's a lot of options now to do traditional postdocs in data science. There's an Insight Fellowship that's really great. Policy or public engagement. AAAS has a Science and Tech Fellowship, and some states have policy fellowships as well. There's a AAAS Mass Media Fellowship, and different journal places like Nature are opening up positions for internships, and the FDA has a postdoc. If you're deciding to do a traditional postdoc, it's great advice to think about what it might look like to complete your postdoc in 2 years. Because what we found through career coaching and talking with a lot of people across the country is that making the transition after 2 years of your postdoc or 5 years of your postdoc is kind of the same. So think about picking a postdoc where you can have some milestones and make decisions about whether you want to move on from that point. If there are visa considerations, remember to talk to your international office as well. Remember that every end is a new beginning. I like to bring this here because it's very difficult to think about transitioning into a different role when you've maybe spent 10 years, you're far away from your family. There's all these sacrifices you may have made to get to where you are. But all of those will not be in vain if you think about how you're going to still use all of those skills and experiences to make impact in your next step. So remember to think that it's a new start and it's a chance to do something that's more aligned with what's interesting to you and can help move you forward in your career. If you want some support with your exploration, you can go back to the MyIDP platform and do some goal planning. Meet with a graduate career advisor or a PhD career advisor as well on your campus. And finally, thank you for your attention in this. As you want to go back and think about how to set these goals or how to do these experiences, you can check out both parts of the series. Good luck.